Today, I'm breaking down the 2025 Florida State Seminoles. They have new coaches, they have big time transfers, and they're hoping to forget about last year. In just a second, we'll talk about them. But first, welcome to the channel, another college football podcast. If you're new here, most likely you are because it's a new podcast. I hope you'll subscribe. If you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll pass it along to your friends, your neighbors, and other people who just love to talk about college football, talking about any and everybody in college football. So I hope you'll subscribe. It is free, and I appreciate it. Growing up in the 90s, when I think about Florida State, I think about old man Bowden. Yeah, Bobby Bowden. He was beating the crap out of everybody. He had Warwick Dunn. He had Peter Warwick. He had all the Warwicks. It was crazy. They won multiple national championships, and he goes down as one of the best coaches to ever touch a college football field. We fast forward to, last year, Florida State came out dressed in the same uniforms. They were coming off of a season where they won their conference championship, won over 10 ball games. But last year was one of the biggest come-aparts I've ever seen, for a successful football team, ever. It was unbelievable. Well, Mike Norvell remembered one thing. He is the head coach of the football team. And it is within his power to correct what he believes is wrong. So what did he do? He let go of a lot of his staff. And he brought in former UCF, former Auburn offensive coordinator, former Auburn head coach, Gus Malzahn. A man who really knows how to run an offense. He turned around, he brought in former Nebraska defensive coordinator Tony White. And along with them and some other new coaches, he brought in a ton of transfers. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you better pull off your shoes to help count how many of these new transfers he brought in, because there is a crazy list. Now, I always hesitate to name this many people out, because how the transfer portal works, as soon as I name out somebody, they just hit the transfer portal 5 minutes ago. But as of right now, we'll lead off with Thomas Castellanos. This is the former Boston College quarterback. Now, he was benched during last year. But when they played Florida State in like game 2, game 3 of the 2024 campaign, this guy was a menace against a team he's now playing for. Joining him, Jalen King from ETSU, former 4-star Gavin Sawchuk from Oklahoma. Big time, 6'6", and I'm talking about big time, not only in size, but also a big recruit coming out of high school, Deuce Robinson. He's 6'6". He's coming from Southern Cal. Gavin Blackwell from North Carolina. Squirrel White, the short yet shifty wide receiver from Tennessee. Randy Pittman from UCF. Marcuston Douglas from Arizona State. I believe he used to play at Florida State. Correct me if I'm wrong. Gunnar Hansen from Vanderbilt. Adrian Medley from UCF. Micah Pettis from Ole Miss. Luke Pettitbon from Wake Forest. Jalen Matthews from Rutgers. Josh Raymond from Vanderbilt. James Williams on the defensive line from Nebraska, following Tony White over here. DeMonte Diggs from Coastal Carolina. Deontay McCray from Western Kentucky. Jason Jenkins from Tennessee. Elijah Herring from Memphis via Tennessee. Caleb Lavalley, forgive me if I messed that up, from North Carolina. Stephon Thompson from Nebraska. Jarvis Boatwright Jr. from USC. Jeremiah Wilson from Houston. And there's probably even more that I somehow missed. So my goal is to go over this team and talk about them within a 10-minute period. I just wasted a bunch of time talking about all the transfers that they brought in. Why would I do that? Why wouldn't I manage my time better? I'll tell you why. Because a lot of those guys I just named out will be starting for them. It doesn't really matter who's returning from last year, because if you go and you look at a roster for Florida State, you're going to see most of those guys I just named out as the starters. Now, sure, Brock Glenn, the quarterback who was massacred by Georgia, but stood out there and took it. He didn't transfer. No, he stayed last year. He even got passed over. He got passed over again. Brock Glenn's still on the football team, folks. Don't forget the Roydell Williams, the running back from Alabama. He's going to be playing for them. I overlooked him because it's easy to do. Long story short, most of the transfers will be starters. That's what you need to know about this team that went 2-10 last year. You can't blame Mike Norvell, a man who has a over $55 million buyout, if my memory serves me correct. Now, as I'm looking over this team, and as we're going to start going over their season, because as I said, I want to cover this team within a 10-minute period, I'm going to pull up their schedule. Something that I should have done before I got on here live. I admit, it was a small snafu. But give me some credit for using the word snafu. I think it was funny. Here we go. So I'm going to share their schedule, and I want you to look over it. Now, I want to tell you that Florida State, I truly believe that Florida State has a chance to do quite well. I don't believe that Florida State is going to be terrible. I believe that Florida State will actually be a problem for certain people. So let's look at the schedule. First off, on August the 30th, which is 7 weeks from today, Florida State and Alabama will play. All right? I hate it for the Seminoles. I'd rather them play some terrible team, but that would make it easier for them if they started off with the East Texas A&M in game one. The next week, they play East Texas A&M. They play Kent State. They play Virginia. Let's pause right there. Look at that. Let's say they lose that game, but they play well, and they're 3-1. They're very much in the they very much have it within their will to go 3-1. Then they play Miami. They could come into that Miami game 3-1. Now, who knows how Miami's going to be this year? Miami always has good players. They have Carson Beck. We'll see how that works out. Then you have Pittsburgh. Very much a winnable game for them. Stanford, one of the worst teams in all of the ACC. You have Wake Forest, another seller team. So here, let's just say they lose to Miami and they lose to Alabama. They only have 2 losses, considering last year they only had 2 wins. They play Clemson in Clemson. Let's say that's a loss. You play Virginia Tech, a team that 1 minute will play okay and the next minute they could lose to anyone. Let's say Florida State wins that game. You play NC State, a team that last year really wet the bed. KC Concepcion left, went to Texas A&M. CJ Bailey, the big 6'6" quarterback, he stayed around. But I believe they can win that game. And Florida's very interesting. Because last year, they went on a run at the very end of the year that turned things around. Probably saved Napier's job. So if we do the math here, and let's just say they lose to Bama, they lose to Miami, they lose to Clemson, and they lose to Florida, you just won 8 games. Now, let's just, for the next minute and a half that I have here, let's play a game here. Out of these games, which ones that I say that they lost, which ones do I believe that they could definitely win? Well, if you watched my ACC preview, was my first video that I uploaded on here, talking about previews and looking at teams and so on, you know that I said that Florida State has a really good chance of being a dark horse to ruin and spoil some people's days. They could definitely do that, in my opinion, to Florida. Now, as Clemson fans, we're not overlooking them. I'm not. I feel more comfortable that this Clemson team will win. But Miami, those are 2 toss-up games that could give them wins number 9, maybe even pushing it win number 10. So where do I see the Florida State Seminoles for this coming season? Well, I tell you, I believe that this Florida State team definitely has 8 wins in their future. I think that 8 wins is extremely possible. Worst case scenario, I think 7 wins. I just don't see them winning less than 7 games. Best case scenario, they go 10-2. I'm really pushing there but they would beat Miami and that they would beat Florida, their in-state rivals. We'll see how that goes. But I see Florida State really correcting what happened last year and moving forward. and using those transfers and those new coaches to really be a problem for teams and get back to Florida State form. This year, there's a lot of building to do, but we will see. Well, folks, I have previewed Florida State in about 10 minutes. There's no way I could do a complete and total in-depth analysis of this entire team in 10 minutes, but to give you a quick overview, you get to see who they are, what they are, who they bring back, and who they've hired. And I think this team's definitely on the up and up. Let me know in the comment section what you think. I hope you'll pass this along to your friends, neighbors, and anyone else who loves college football. I hope they'll subscribe. Y'all take care of yourself. And as always, I'll catch you next time watching college football.